Okay, this is my third attempt, third format, so hopefully the third time is a charm. As you can see, I'm using my iPad, videoing from my laptop because I cannot get Camtasia to load. So I am going to walk you through the Grayson Part 2 homework. So you should have the handout from class a week and a half ago now. Dealing with Grayson, and we're going to walk through part 2 and then introduce you to part 3. So what you see here is I have taken the data. There were 9 weeks listed on the homework part 2, and I simply just assigned them dates. And you see column B are the data collection dates, column C, words correct per minute, and column D, the errors. So I began by plotting the first 3 points, October 1st, 8th, and 15th, or week 1, week 2, week 3. And remember, we're interested in the median. So for these 3 data points during the baseline, the median for Grayson is 31. And what I asked you to do after that, it said using the first 3 data points, calculate a goal and place a goal line for weeks 3 through 9. So thinking back to the Dino progress monitoring module, you know to calculate a goal, we are using a reasonable goal. And since Grayson is a second grader, her rate of growth would be 1.5 words read per week. And we would have to know how many weeks we have left. And in this case, we have 6 remaining weeks. And at 1.5 rate of growth times 6 weeks, that number becomes 9. So what we want to do to set the goal is add 9 to her median baseline score, which had been 31. So 31 plus 9 gives us a goal of 40. So what I simply did here was insert a shape, and I physically drew the goal line here, changed the color, and then labeled it for you to be able to see. So once we go back, which was the next part, to place weeks 3 through 9 into your table, what I did was add that data. So to do that, you would be selecting new data. And the way I did that was I chose words correct per minute and I edited it. And it is coming up correctly now because I want cell 2 through cell 10 here. But if I wasn't sure, I could have come back, and of course now my computer wants to be funny, and selected all of that data, and it's saying, are you sure? And it's the exact same data. So I'm going to cancel that because I've already done that, but I wanted to show you how I did edit that data. So what we have now is the majority of your week or part 2 homework. You've placed weeks 3 through 9 into your table, and you've updated the data points so you can see that they are there. And then it asks you using weeks 1 through 9 to calculate Grayson's current rate of growth. So remember, to calculate slope, you want the last probe of words correct per minute, which would be 34, minus the first probe, which in this case is 30. And we know that that's going to equal 4. And then we're going to have that divided by the last week, which was 9, week 9 minus 1, which gives us 8. So 4 divided by 8, we know, equals 0.5. So her rate of growth is 0.5. That means every 2 weeks she is adding 1 new word read correctly per minute. So just common sense will tell you already that if a reasonable goal is 1.5 words read correctly per minute, Grayson is not on target to meet this goal simply by this rate of growth. But we are using that information to make decisions. So at the end of this grading period, as you'll see what we're getting ready to do for part 3, we'll talk about some of those decisions. But for right now, I want you to be certain that you understand, 1, how to graph and update that data, and 2, how to calculate a goal, and then 3rd, how to calculate the current rate of growth or slope. So those are the things that I've just gone through, and those were the skills that you were to complete for part 2 using Grayson's data. So then we continue on with part 3, and this is where we begin to think that schools set benchmark scores, and then we universally screen to see who's falling behind and how to make decisions about who receives Tier 2. So the other assignment that you've done this week, looking at the Dino module and at the data chart that I emailed you and listening to the audio, has had you practice and think about how to analyze this data. So right now we're moving to look at, it says, if the second grade fall benchmark is words correct per minute being 51 read, will Grayson reach this goal by week 18, which would be the second 9 weeks? Now, you can go in and physically add those 9 weeks, and I'm going to show you where I've added some dates in just a minute. But think about it. At this point, all you have to do is multiply and add. So we know currently that she is at 34 words read correctly per minute. And we're going to add 6 more weeks to get her to week 18, or actually, I guess, yes, because we had, we had 9, so we've got to add 9 more weeks. Sorry about that. So you would simply multiply 9 times 0.5, and that's going to give you 4.5. So if you add 4.5 to where she is currently, which is 34, that gives you 38.5 words read correctly per minute. So she will not reach the fall benchmark goal of 51. Now remember, that's a school-wide kind of universal benchmark score. If Grayson were making progress and bypassing her goal of 40, I think we'd be in good shape, but you still will use that comparison of the school-wide benchmark, and you'll be reading about that as you do your case studies this week when you look at a dual model. But right now, I don't want to get you more confused. So just know that all you have to do is add how many weeks you have left to intervene. You have to multiply how many weeks you have left to intervene by the either current slope, or if you're setting goals, the reasonable goal number. And in our case, we're trying to make a decision about a young woman that we have a current rate of growth or slope for, which we know is 0.5. So we can make decisions or have a conversation about whether or not she will meet certain goals in a time frame using that number 0.5. So let's just keep on going, and hopefully you'll be able to follow along here in just a second. So it goes on to say, so as you look at the following goal, and I'm assuming this is an IEP goal the way it's written, you can make that assumption, that Grayson is going to increase the number of words read correctly from 34, which is, look, that's where she is, to 72. So let's have a conversation right here. What can you tell is taking place by looking at this chart alone and then reading that there is a goal set here of her progressing from 34 to 72? You should know that she was obviously referred for Tier 3 intervention and qualified, so we would want to draw an additional vertical line here to show that an intervention change is being made. So let me get back in here, and that is, again, simply just inserting a shape, straight line, and then we can change that format that is needed. So right now, there we go. We would want that to be black. So this would be the end of Tier 1 or Tier 2, and in our case it would be Tier 2. So there needed to be an adjustment here in the middle, but we're not going through each of those steps. We're kind of jumping ahead here. But I want you to think about this goal, and you need to revise what you would be doing based on how many weeks you have. So for Grayson, looking at the new information, we're going to be setting a goal for the entire year instead of just the little goal that we did at the top. So you can see here, I added all these additional dates, and given that I didn't start until October 1st, it went through July 7th. But we are revising her goal and changing it to 72 because that is the goal that we were given here. Her goal is to increase from 34 to 72. So that becomes our goal. So you have to then ask yourself, using the rate of growth, calculate your prediction of how many words correct per minute Grayson will actually have by the end of the 4th grading period. So again, we have the first grading period here, 9 weeks, and she is at 34. So of the 36 weeks left, we have, let's just write it out here. So we already have 9 weeks, and it says revise your goal for 36 weeks. So that leaves us 27 weeks. And we know that her rate of growth has been 0.5. So 27 times 0.5 would give us 13.5 words correct per minute that we would add. So if she is at 34, we're saying in 27 weeks, given no additional intervention, she would only add 13.5 words correct per minute, giving her a total of 47.5 words correct per minute. So she will not reach her goal based on the current intervention. So if you look at part 3, what I want you to do is think about how would you discuss this with a parent, and what would your options be? What would you suggest to that parent? And those are the 2 questions that I want you to email me for your answers. We have this new goal line, and we could draw a line from 34, just if we were showing a parent, from 34 to 47.5. And we could show the parent that at her current rate of growth, this is our projected goal. If nothing else happens, this is where we need to get Grayson. So the question becomes, as a teacher, what do you do to fill this gap? And when you're having a conversation with a parent, these visuals are very effective to make them understand why additional special education services and interventions are needed to help their student make progress at a rate that is conducive to them moving forward in their education of their specific grade level. So review this a second time if you need to, making sure that you understand how to use the graphs to have conversations with parents, and particularly looking back